Fundraising is never easy for any company in any stage. And sometimes it does feel like we are talking to 10,000 different people and still not talking to the right one. And there's a discouragement setting in, and you feel like, did I do the right thing? Or just nobody recognized my value and the solutions we really wanted to bring to the world? Or perhaps is that you're using all the tactics that are not truly strategies that make you stand out and be successful. So today we have Keara here with us, and so excited for her from a venture perspective, and who has been speaking at UNs, in large conferences, entities, who has been driving the changes in fintech and many different areas in the healthcare space to show us how do we secure funding in the most effective way so you can truly stand out and be the leading marketplace to save and solve problems in our healthcare space. And before we get started, let's have a quick introduction.
Welcome to Health Tech Growth, the weekly podcast for healthcare founders and innovators, where we explore essential strategies to create successful and sustainable healthcare startups that improve patient outcomes and transform the healthcare industry.
Hi, Keara. So for everybody, we met actually recently for something that's kind of serendipitous. I was speaking to one of my other friends who also is in venture capital as well as around accelerator. And because I have, as some of you guys know, spoke on the test stage recently on the problem of why are we having gatekeepers, especially getting less than 3% of funding for women-owned businesses? And that really spanned into having these episodes of Funding Her Future series, interviewing both the investors and the founders who has been able to successfully raise capital to say, what does that mean for all of you? How do we really select and be able to partner with the right solutions? So there is us here presenting for you. So Keara, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this specific area?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. Second of all, congratulations on the TED Talk. That is amazing. Truly a pleasure and honor to be here. So a little bit about myself. Started a little over 20 years ago in big pharma before transitioning into the world of finance here in New York on Wall Street. Figured out that wasn't really the course I wanted to go. And I needed to learn a lot more about how the capital structures worked when you are a business owner. And after having my first business and exiting it, which was, more of a brick and mortar healthcare facility, I realized, hey, I need to sharpen the pencil and really understand what your financials need to look like, from P&L, balance sheet, debt schedule, and then different financial products, right? That will help me versus become cyclical of my cash flow and never get out of it from a valuation perspective, and then also to return to shareholders. And so, going through those hurdles led me to advisory roles, then board seats, and then eventually executive leadership. So I've been president of a small molecule biotech company, and then more recently CEO, co-founder, and on the board of a large molecule antibody biotech company. So for many years, I have been what I joke around saying a chief begging officer, dialing every day for dollars, going through pitch books, going through LinkedIn, being at every single conference I could be at to try to meet high net worths, family offices, venture folks, and then private equity. The total raise of the last company was, we were working with 380 million. So that is not for the faint of heart. And there's a lot of balancing acts that have to be done there, from development phases, timelines, and then all the way through what you need to do for optimization, market trends, pay attention to geopolitical risks, macro, micro, right? So when you're building these large companies, it's not just about, hey, what am I hitting on milestones, valuation inflection points, and what's the exit? You have to be lifting and looking at triggers along the way. And, as I've exited that and moved into the side of venture and putting money to work in the market, I've just realized a gap with a lot of these founders. There's a big division between being on the bench and in the boardroom. And so I really want to give back to the community and share best practices and be more vocal about capital raising and fundraising strategies and building what that needs to look like out. So it saves time, and hopefully you can hit some goals and milestones quicker.
Yeah, for sure. And then for you, it's like this journey of you done it, and then now you're become this advisor, this mentor for other people, and then also building your own venture on the back end to see what are these portfolio companies that you truly believe in, and to be able to support them. But also, we know flip the switch is sometimes people just like yourself being out there, people wanted to connect with you because we all wanted to connect with amazing people, right? Who has the expertise, who has the network to expand. But most of the time, we also seeing people are done it unintentionally. And so you, like yourself, you're probably getting hundreds of emails a week just on different pitches. So what do you see as the major challenges nowadays when people start raising capital? And of course, the early stages have different problems than the later stages.
Yeah, great question. And, there's a reason why I keep my LinkedIn profile the way I do. Everyone asks me, I'm an IC with the most active venture fund in the country, the third in the world. And, me and the CEO were having discussions about it and looking at decks and trying to figure out which vertical box to put them in with the cross pollination of like med tech, health tech, femtech, et cetera. And I looked at her and I said, we just got 62 decks last week. And she said, unless it is from a first or second connection that we've either funded, had a physical touch meeting in real life person, not just a Zoom, we're not even going to look at it at this point. And I think the problem is, I equate this to dating. It's like, you cannot just say, oh, this one looks good, let me reach out to them, meaning as an investor, because people will see me speak, people know that I'm an advisor, or I've, put capital to work, whether it's debt capital, which is what my background's really structured in, or venture dollars, or just angel checks. But they're not spending time saying what matters. And there's ways to do that. And I think that you have to put the work into it. You can't just say, oh, they're, under VC, or they're under an angel check writer. Let me just throw out 6 paragraphs and a 30-page slide deck. I like to see maximum 3 sentences that are engaging, evoking. Explain to me exactly what you're doing, right? Hey, I have this, I'm at this stage and I'm looking for money. That's it. That's all I need to know, right? What are you doing? What's the impact? But when I get these long-winded and it's overselling, I don't want to read it. I hate to sound like a jerk, but it's just, and I'm not alone in this. I think post-COVID, everyone has learned, hey, if you're going to do an in-person meeting here in New York, you really can't do more than 5 a day. There's just not enough time. And that's a 10-hour day. During COVID, you could do Zooms and I could bang out 8 of them every hour, right? And listen to it and pitch. But now it's got to be higher touch points with more thought behind it.
Right. And then I think that goes back to what do we see as a marketing and branding to start with. And most companies, they see that as, oh, we don't need that. That just means I have my color panel, I have my phone, I have a basic website. I'm like, that is now a brand. A brand is your personality, it's your value, it's how people see you. It's within that 60 second, I should get how you're doing, what you're solving, in what basic way to make me curious enough to ask you more questions about it. And people don't get into that at all. And I feel like most of them think that's a waste of money to even do their homework on it, on how to stand out properly. So then even for me, I have a lot of questions in terms of people just want to get out there, but they don't actually have a clear brand story or even understand how they're standing out more than their competitors, or they don't even know who their competitors are. So then it's not helpful, right? And then they go on to do these speaking engagement, do all the events, meeting people, podcasts, all this other stuff. And then to me, it's actually creating confusion with the reputation they're building, not a clarity. So most people, I feel like in that sense, is they're just again, tactics. oh, I just need to send out more pitch decks. I just need to play the numbers game and throw things out there instead of taking their time. Are you the right stage of the company for these people who could potentially back you up, or you actually don't know enough about? So with that being said, what do you think is the better practice for people to find the right resources and do the right due diligence on their own before they reach out?
I mean, you just gave so many great comments. So I'm going to try to tackle them one by one. First of all, when people look at creating that brand, it goes into the story. And at one part, if you're going to work with an agency to do that, and obviously I come from, the biopharma, so it's more scientifically driven. It's not going to be, like an earring or something like this. We do have something exciting that I'm invested in an earring, but that's a diagnostic. But nonetheless, it's an investment versus expense. And if you cannot tell your story in a Rocky pitch format or in 30 seconds of what problem you're solving, what market you're penetrating, what you need, and where the ROI is, then you're not going to get far. Seriously, especially in the Northeast, right? Different parts of the country are a little slower and a little more patient, but I will just tell you that right here, it does not fly. So they have to invest into what that storyline is. And I've seen a lot of founders that over-regurgitate, what they think it is and try to oversell it and overcomplicate it. And simplicity is key. Jamie Dimon actually has a lot of great quotes about that. He runs one of the most complex organizations on the planet, and he makes everything sound so simple. And that's truly an art and a gift. And, Sabrina, I know that's where you are so strong in helping these founders, just drill down and get to that. Something else that you had said is from a competitive analysis. I love a good SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. I mean, put it out there, show it to me, show me the SWOT, show me the competitive landscape so I can very quickly pinpoint where you're at and see if that's a vertical that I see probability of success, or it speaks to me. You want to work on deals that get you really excited and that you can truly add value. The other thing is, I'm just going to do this in full transparency. Even though I work with VC now, I didn't take venture money for my last company. And there was a lot of reasons why I did not want venture money. And, I don't want to beat up venture funds, but, I knew that I would have a noose around my neck, and it would have been a tough decision to take that capital from a morale perspective as well. So that wasn't always the fit, but I think venture is really opening up to change. It needs to change. I've been very vocal as well about, if you're going to help XYZ with the company, you don't need a board of directors, which you see a lot of VCs have taken, because then that handicaps the CEO. You have paralysis over analysis. Why do you need governance when you need to be scrappy, roll up your sleeves, get it done? And that's why brand marketing and positioning is so key, because if you do have to pivot for whatever reason, obviously, we want to see that backed by data and analytics and strong decision-making capabilities for that. You got to be able to change that messaging quickly, right? And maneuver through it.
Exactly. It's that different stage of the company, especially earlier stage. When you're below 5 million, you have to be very solid on your marketing and sales. And then you start adding on to the operational efficiency structure, because if you don't have a basic foundation, you're not scalable. So for people who are just doing more and more and more, but they don't build a structure, and then I look at it, I'm like, I have no idea what you're trying to do. Then how do I do a SWOT analysis on you so you can stand out, right? So one of the things that we even do for company is capital readiness scorecard. So we're going to look at across the 12 domain of your business, what are you doing, right? Like, how are you comparing where you're supposed to be, what you need to be? And sometimes it's more like, you're not at 10 million mark yet. Don't compare yourself to the companies who are there. You need to compare it to yourself in the stage of the company you need to be in. And otherwise, there's going to be a lot of negative talk around themselves, discouragement instead of encouragement of, yeah, we're doing really well in this area. Let's figure out how to improve. Let's show that this investor, whether he was angels or actually going for VC private equity, that they actually have strategies to have a long runway and not just ask for money and don't actually know how to use these funds appropriately. Then we worry about you are just constantly asking for money and not getting anywhere, right? And then, and isn't that one of the biggest worry why we're spending so much hours doing due diligence?
Yeah, no, that's so key. I mean, I've seen so many pro formas that are BS. I saw one this morning and they're telling me they're going to scale to 100 million by next year. And I'm like, how are you doing this? I'm like, oh, we're going to sell strategics and partnerships. I'm like, where? They're like, we've got it. And I'm like, okay, where? Like, how are you getting to it, right? Show me comps in the industry, launch plans, development timelines, testing phase, integration of these milestones, key development phases, right? And then what those metrics are to achieve this number instead of just saying we're going to get there. So they got to be real life. It's ridiculous. And I think that's also what's hurt the industry. We could just say healthcare as a whole, because obviously biotech is very different. And then you had biotech innovation fueling pharma, right? Coming out of COVID and a lot of the breakthroughs there versus wearables, med tech, femtech. I love femtech. I love wearables right now. Diagnostics, I'm really keen on, because if we don't have the right diagnostics, then we cannot focus on the right treatment protocols and algorithms. But yeah, I mean, they've got to drill down and show the capital stack, and use of proceeds.
Exactly. And I think most people, I would say, when one of our expertise is making sure we're building the right executive team, right? And like that start with your founders, your co-founders, or whoever you bring as a CEO, COO, and whatnot. And then we believe there's the three persona, the visionary, which a lot of people are, right? They think big. So that's when visionary trying to pitch, and it's this grand vision. Oh, we can just get there. But there's not enough detail, which means they need a strategist who's a connector to actually create that. But sometimes if you just have this connector pitching, they are selling so fluffy that I'm like, but what is that? I don't feel the physical sense of what the goal looks like. And then, but if you have the third leg, which is missing, is the implementer, right? Who takes the vision, what has to be, what could be, and then creating that plan. But if you only have someone who's great at operational, taking the plan, they can go into the rabbit hole too much and then they lose the big vision, right? So in any company, we usually believe you need a visionary, the connector, and the implementer to come together uniformly to have that specific detail to actually do something. And therefore, it's not the typical, yeah, I think a lot of these companies are go for B2B, right? Or B2B2C. And it's always, oh yeah, we have our ambassadors, we have this. Oh, so okay, so once you're ambassador, do the intro, what's next? Oh yeah, we have some kind of automation. But I'm like, what is that, right? And everyone always tell me they have a system, but it's not actually never built out. So then you wonder, if you know what to do but you don't do it, then what's the problem here, right? And then that means you don't have the system to actually do it, or you haven't been able to test out enough for that system to be repeatable, right? So I think that there's a lot of false belief in what actually work or what doesn't work, and they're just start looking into the next shiny thing of the next thing they can do and forget about what core foundation when they need to do. So that's why it's also hard for the rest of us, whether you stay in that investor or the strategy or the advisor role, to look into to help them. If people are not able to see the reality of what they are right now, we're not to say slow down, right? We're saying you have to check in so you can go further.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I mean, I've seen it too, where there's a lot of talk about execution, but there's a lack of accountability for those defined roles to actually execute on each plan and then bring it together. I'm not sure where that's coming from, the vertical specific, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about now that you're in this round of, you have portfolio companies that you're working with. So what I'm curious is, uh, uh, tell us a little bit more about what they are like. So then you can also share from other people who could be the right companies who wanted to be able to connect with you, so they know where they needed to be.
Yeah, great. So right now, what I'm really keen on is helping other female funders. I know that it was a different story if I was pitching versus some of my male counterparts. It just was. Now, that a year has gone by, I've had very transparent conversations. Some I've had to give people 4, 5, or 6 martinis to get it out of them. But one of the CEOs had said to me more recently, he goes, Keara, it was nothing about your company. Actually, you guys had the best probability of success given where your milestones were. But, we just had to find the best woman. And there was 50 people pitching, about 20 were women. There was more men. And there's great companies in there, solving problems, working for IVF, this, that, whatever. And guys that were pitching that had a Me Too food delivery app were getting funded. And we couldn't believe it. And it was just, the bros, how you do it. And again, we're not pinning men against women, but there's just something to be said about persona. So I'm really trying to give back to female founders that are chief begging officers like I have been, for a decade. And where there's merit, where there's grit. I have all the fundamentals that I'm looking at from an underwriting perspective. Biotech's been pretty beaten up lately. So I'm looking to very innovative companies. I like anything that is solving very unique problems like anyone else. I don't want to bore you on this, podcast with the biotech. What I'm loving right now is actually diagnostics, because now we have, the birth of the AI, bubble or not. And without true diagnostics, we are not able to pinpoint exactly what's going on. Okay. And we can also prevent a lot. And in women's health, it's very different than men's health. I will ask you, given your background, I mean, the perfect example is if a man has an MI, cardiac issue, heart attack, and a woman has one, they look very different. I can't tell you how many men do not know the difference. They're like, wait, women don't get the sharp pain in their arm and their chest. I mean, can you speak to that? Just educate the audience, given your background really quick, and then I'll finish answering.
Yeah, so we know that both age and culture and gender all manifest symptoms differently. So of course, I do cardiac surgery, so I have people who are as young as in their 30s and 40s, very obese, coming in. I have no idea what's going on and having these symptoms, and all of a sudden they're in a hospital, right? Or they're saying that, oh, I can't believe one of my friends just passed away. Now I wanted to do a study to see how is my health. And then we end up finding out they have multi-disease and they are going to schedule for surgery. And sometimes really is like women are less likely the traditional left arm pain, right? But they're more symptomatic on like a nauseous symptom, right? Upset stomach type of thing, not necessarily the jaw radiating pain and the typical elephant sitting on your chest. So we needed to make sure that when we're looking at our own health, we have to be sensitive on how culturally, right? A lot of culture, like the Asians, the Hispanic, they tend to don't seek out care because they're like, oh, keep your problems within the family. You'll be fine. Work through it, instead of actually be conscious about if we're not at our best place, if you're not voicing, nobody else know that you're hurting, that nobody can help you. And to something so critical, then you have a massive heart attack, then you become much higher risk for us to do anything for you.
No, it's scary. So one of the projects that I love, and I wouldn't call it a project, I would just say it's almost consuming my time right now, is in Keara Health. And it is an earring. I'm not wearing them right now, but they're little studs, balls, and they're going to come in rose gold, silver, and yellow gold. And it can track core body temperature, heart rate variability, oxygen, respiratory rate, wellness management. But the clincher is the menstrual cycle tracking. And every other wearable out there was built off a 24-hour cycle. And women, 28-day cycle was invented out of big pharma. And how? Because of birth control packets decades ago. And so with the software for that one, it's actually tracking, on the average of 28 days. And then through AI and the software applications, it'll be able to drill down to your luteal phase, to hormone, to sleep patterns. I'm sick of my wearables yelling at me or making me, feel that I'm not adequate on certain days. And that is because it's certain times of that cycle, so you'll wake up and your sleep score is lower. And I'm like, well, is it, XYZ going on in my body? And it's not adjusting for that. So super excited about that. I think that'll really change the dynamics in the healthcare spectrum. There's a big data play there, obviously, from a clinicianal standpoint, but also just ownership as women, and being able to have health accountability for ourselves, and really something that's not interfering, on our watch, on our wrist, washing our hands, you're in surgery, you're able to wear this throughout the day. So I love that one. And then I'll pivot really quickly to something else I'm excited about, working with the IC. Women have not had the same amount of time to have house money, we call it, that men have as venture checks, right? I mean, most of the VCs, if you look around the table, or the LP GP strategy, it's mostly men. It's mostly male executives. It's mostly men that are cutting the checks. And when you go to have conversations with women, it's just a longer sales cycle. It is. It's proven. I am a testament to this. And so really building out funding structures that allow women to get into being able to finance some of these deals, as an angel through an SPV model, that they don't have to write, $250K checks. You could start writing $5,000 checks and get into some of these deals, like an Keara that I was discussing, or XYZ company, for example. I think is really important, because, in a decade or so, when you have these exits and the big roll-ups, you want those annuities. You want to have that quote unquote house money to be able to go ahead and have an opportunity to start investing. So on the financial side of things and the venture side of things, I'm really excited about giving women opportunities to get into these deals, that, these are companies that you'll use, that you're passionate about, that you want to learn about, and learn about all the things that you and I are talking about. What's the next milestone that you're hitting? What's the next liquidity? What's right? And everything in between.
Exactly. I think it's at the end of the day is how do you become so intentional? And I think we use this word a lot, but how people interpret what that means is very different. So we have to be in a stage to be, number one, clarity, right? Like what is that vision, mission that needed to be carried in every single project, every single relationship that we're building. And then it's about what have you done to prepare yourself to give other people that clarity that they're looking for, so it can be a great collaborative sense. And that's one of the things that, Keara, you even mentioned. Sometimes you don't want to take VC, you rather go for venture or a lender or whatever. It's because you're looking for that specific relationship or independence. And that's totally fine, because that aligns with your mission and vision of how you perceive what it is of right now. And then you can pivot later on as you grow, as you're scaling. But no matter what, it's step by step. And then to be able to say, you have to have a structure that's repeatable and measurable. And if you don't even know what winning KPIs are, which surprisingly, I ask a lot of people that, and they're like, I don't know. That's what we're trying to find out. Well, in my head is, before you do any activity, there should be a goal. And then you wanted to set some type of goal. So then you can create strategy for that, and not simply, oh yeah, we're just start doing this. We have the database. We'll just start sending messages out. We'll see where it goes and where it gets us. That's just like throwing things on the wall and see what sticks. It doesn't mean that's not a strategy. That's just like wasting your time and effort. So
that's very key. The other thing that I've seen is, and I've experienced this as CEO before, that you want to keep people in a role, at a legacy, at a relationship, out of them being there in the beginning. But as the company grows, sometimes your team has to grow, and sometimes you outgrow certain people. And so when you're measuring that, like you just said, KPIs, and giving, responsibility, accountability, and execution, sometimes it's not right. And sometimes you got to say, let me put this on pause, or come back to this, or because in these startups, you don't always have time to train them, put them in leadership development. You don't have the resources that the huge companies do, right? And that's when it's time to call a consultant, right? And call somebody in for that designated time frame, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and really let them hit it on the head, right? And then be able to re-strategize and restructure, so you are hitting these KPIs. Because again, investment versus expense. And if you're not investing into the right metrics and to the right data points to execute on, you're not going to get far.
Correct. And I think I always say, like, every company, you should have at least 10 to 15% set aside to be able to reinvest back in your company. And if you don't, and if you're always paycheck to paycheck, or you say you're making all this revenue, but you can't even invest back in your company when you're in the stage of transition, then that's craziness. That means you don't have any financial set aside. And then you're saying, oh, it's really difficult to raising funds nowadays. And then it's just like,
Circle.
it's a bad vicious circle. So as we're wrapping up, we know you guys are passionate about life sciences, biopharm, fintech, diagnostics, right? And that's
Female-led companies,
female-led
and yep.
And then what are the stage they has to be in for you guys to even be interested to entertain their ideas?
So seed, I would say seed, not pre-seed, right? I'd like to see at least one milestone hit. That's going to look very different for biopharma than it would be like a SaaS company or, a wearable med tech, cosmetic company, nutraceutical. So there's got to be some validated data. And I just really want to see strategic leadership and some of the financial expertise within that, right? I think that for the good leaders out there, to be scrappy, you need to have these. The other side of it is if it's great tech, I've had a lot of CEOs that, and I empathize with this. They're like, look, this is my vision. I want to get it here, but then I no longer want to be CEO, right? Let me just push this because you need to get through XYZ milestone and you need that founder to be on there for the vision to execute. So I think there's a combination, but you just got to go back, have a realistic valuation. Don't just tell me total addressable market, 100 gazillion billion dollars, right? Drill down, like you had said, competitive analysis, SWOT analysis. Just be able to show me in under 2 minutes what you're trying to do and a value proposition that's realistic.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, we all know everyone work hard, right? Even just having a conversation, it's not easy task. So
No.
then why not take your extra at least 10 to 15 minutes to prepare yourself for each person that you reach out to, and take that extra, what we say, that week to 2 weeks to make sure you actually have your SWOT done, your preparedness, the right thing and right documentation, that then you are doing yourself a favor, because that's how you stand out. That's how, when you are giving people the information they didn't even thought to ask, but those are important, and not necessarily to say these investors will dig into all those documents, but even just having them ready, that means you are more prepared than anybody else out there, which means help you to help yourself, right? And then there are plenty of us who know how to do it. And if you guys want to talk to us, happy to have a conversation. And then there are plenty other resources out there. So be prepared. That's all we're saying. And then look for study and having these amazing conversations. And sometimes it is a market that you have to do a little bit of more homework, and don't feel discouraged. And we're all there to help. It's just about your approach and the timeline that we have to be realistic about.
Absolutely. Look, they have to invest. And sometimes there's paralysis over analysis, right? And that's where I think that you shine, right? You're able to kind of get in there and make it simple and be able to, execute on those goals. The last thing I would say is, for the females out there that want to learn how to start investing, or how do you get into venture, if you don't want to put forward $250,000, a few $1,000,000, how do you start, right? Because we need house money. Women deserve a seat at the table, and we need to see more coming in on the SPVs on that. So, would love to have conversations with any women that want to see how to get involved, how to help other founders, not just females, but truly, let's start changing what the statistics look like. And we can only do that by empowering each other, educating each other, and giving each other availability to sit at the table.
Exactly. And number one is we have to get ourselves out there. And number two is don't let what you think is the right thing, or what other people told you, as the restriction of what you need to be. And number three is create that ecosystem, that empowerment yourself. We don't have to always feel like, oh, we need to get into this network and these things. You become the magnificent attractor of who you are, what you embody, and create a whole entire network of your that people who matter to you and how you want to support, whether you become, like Keara saying, become an investor from the angel side, or you start connecting with the right people for your own venture, whatever that means. And we know the power is in the numbers, and it's not just numbers, it's the right people that have the right conversation and believe in true collaboration, and believe in collaboration lead to win-win situation and not one-way directional. So we appreciate everything that people have been doing out there. Appreciate Keara, who has been such amazing outspoken for all of us women's leaders out there. So there's a lot more to be said, and then definitely connect with her on LinkedIn. And from the whole entire episode, it's about intentional drop that message of perhaps is you found her because this episode, right? What is your major takeaway from our conversation? And be conversational, be natural, right? Build that relationship, because that's number one of why we care about working with one company versus the other. So at the end of the day, start talking and then be creative in how you reach out to others. So I appreciate you, Keara. Any other last word?
No, I appreciate you. I love your drive, your tenacity, your ambition. I don't know when you sleep. I mean, I know you just got 2 new kids, you have a dog, you're in surgery, and you're helping companies truly push through. And so, I just want to thank you for being an ally, and truly, truly, humbled to be part of this.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please comment below for your insights, your questions. We love to support you, love to see what other conversation we can bring forth to make sure that we're here for you. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Health Tech Growth. If you're a healthcare tech innovator or founder interested in being a featured guest on our show, visit healthtech